Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Living with Loss podcast. Today I'm joined by a good mate, Sam Keene. Thank you for joining me, mate.
No problem.
Yeah, so how are things going, mate? You all good?
Yeah, well, very well. You?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Haven't done one of these in a while, so obviously it's nice to be back at the table and have a little conversation with you. Yeah, so let's probably get started, mate. Tell me a bit about your story, who we're talking about today, and we'll sort of just go from there.
So today speaking about my late father, who passed away in June 21st, 2008, so when I was 7 years old. He had a brain tumour, which was first diagnosed in 1998, so just after my parents were married. And we're nearly 13 years on this summer. Still here. He's still here today, and me, my brother, my mum. And yeah, we're here to discuss my story and my journey with that.
So firstly, when as a 7-year-old, like hearing, your father has, a brain tumor, that's, well, it's I mean, one of the things that I've kind of realized when I've had these chats, like trauma has, doesn't really respect age. Like there is no such thing as age when it comes to trauma, but having such a traumatic event at such a young age, it just takes, like, you don't even, like, people don't consider how much of a toll that has on you. So like as a 7-year-old, hearing, you said dad had a brain tumor. Well, how much of that, did you understand, or, that journey sort of thing?
Well, off memory, I think when you're that age, you don't really know about like death or like illness. So when I woke up on that morning, it was a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Must have been about 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And came downstairs, and my whole family was sitting in my living room.
Yeah.
Like, it's surreal. Like, I can just see it in my head now.
Yeah.
I can tell you everything I did that day.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't forget
which
it,
my family members were there. It's a very it's like living out of your body. Like, you can just see yourself back there now. It's you don't really I would say you don't really understand what's gone on for a few years.
No.
And you don't know how to deal with, as a 7-year-old. No. You don't know how to deal with what's gone on.
No, not at all. I mean, look, as a 19 at the time, or there's no, when the thing with loss is, there is no set in stone way to deal with it, and the older you get, it doesn't make any more sense. But especially when you are so young, and the element of being, it's not that it's harder. It's like your brain hasn't developed, and then automatically you have this horrific thing that's happened to you, and it's just confusing. So like, I mean, prior to his passing, how, did you understand this may have been something that could have happened, or?
I don't think so. Like, since you asked me to come on, especially in last week, I've been thinking about what was life like back then. I think that I have one earliest memory of my dad at home. Yeah. Which is very poignant, and it was just a normal light afternoon, I think. But other than that, I don't really remember him at home. The memories I have of him are in hospitals, in the hospice, and at my grandma's, because he had to live downstairs because he couldn't have the motion to do the stairs and wash himself. And my mum had to go to work to look after us because he obviously couldn't work. So my grandma was his full-time carer. Yeah. They're the memories that are there. Not to say that they're bad memories, because I still remember having good times.
Yeah, of course.
But they aren't the usual memories that everyone else has at that age.
No, of course not. I mean, as a 7-year-old kid, you the memories you have are going to football with your father, and not to say that that you didn't. I know you're a big Spurs fan, so, but having that identity and having that, though, like, my mum first got ill for me when I was 8, and although she had a long journey, it was an 11-year battle. I still can remember as an 8-year-old boy, my mum, crying, breaking down in at home, just, her hair falling out. And I remember how traumatic, and, I can vision it. I can envision that pain it caused me, to see that. And, it's those memories, they stick, they, as like you said, it's not that they're they're sad. It's just how poignant they are in your mind, and how the I keep saying trauma, but it's the pain that it caused, and that's kind of what sticks to me.
I feel like it enhances your memory.
Of course.
And we'll use the word trauma again.
Yeah.
Maybe if in someone else unlike us who hasn't gone through trauma, maybe they don't remember years like 5, 6, 7 as clear as I do.
Yeah.
And it's so clear because maybe I don't know why that is, but it's really, really
But you know what's interesting? From when I think about back then, I can't picture, say, maybe the time Mum and I went to the park and were riding bikes. That's not what I think about. When I do think about all those years ago, the memories that stick are the memories, of her pain. And I think, that probably is because of the sensory overload, and how that really enhances like all your kind of senses, your emotional, your emotions just really go through the roof, and that is what sticks. And as a 7-year-old, obviously living with that is something people don't understand. And like what is it like you would kind of tell people really, like, living with a father whose condition is kind of imminent? Like, how was that for you?
I think I was shone away from it quite a bit as a child. I would say more the living with the weeks after was probably like, if someone asked me a question, it would be about that, because I remember like being in primary school and it was like June. So when you finish primary school, like July, like middle of July. So I was too young. I didn't go to the funerals, didn't go to Shiva. So I went back to school, but I don't know, maybe like a week later. And like, I think I'd kind of understood by that point that he wasn't coming back, and I didn't want to speak to anyone. I'd go to school, I'd like just put myself in a corner, get chairs around me. Like, it sounds childish, but like that's how my child wanted to like.
Oh, you were only a child.
Yeah.
You say it's childish. Yeah. You were a 7-year-old boy.
I'd just sit there like in the reading corner with chairs around me. I wouldn't want to speak to anyone or like do any school. I wish I could do that now at uni, to be honest.
Yeah, same, mate.
But yeah, I think like and it was just, I think it's little things like I'd come to like in the middle of a year and I'd get a letter from my parents and it would say Mr. and Mrs. Keene, and as an 8 or 9-year-old, now I wouldn't say anything. I get people make mistakes. As a 9-year-old, I was like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
He's not here. Yeah.
You can't comprehend the idea that this person is no longer around. And, I mean, that example you gave, and, of course, mistakes are made, and, people, slip up all the time. And, people sometimes say to myself, I don't know, where did your parents go for dinner, for example? And you can. Oh yeah. And it's a small mistake. Like you can almost see the life drain from their eyes when they say something like that. And it's not to say it's that the idea that, of course, they're so cautious of what they're saying, but there are small things that do definitely bring up heightened trauma. Things like letters addressed to my mum, or that could be, I guess, pictures or just small things that definitely are what I find incredibly difficult to in my daily life, sort of thing.
I think for me, a bit different. When did your mum pass away? Did you say 2 years ago?
Yeah, so it was October 23rd, 2019. I don't know why that took me quite a while to come to, but yeah. So
2019.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like it's a bit different.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a lot more used to the people saying about your dad or your parents. I feel like I've kind of not over that bit, but because my mum's been with someone now for about like 5 or 6 years now. They're hopefully getting married in September.
Okay.
And all the time people will say, oh, about, like, especially people you don't know.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, about like mum and dad and all that, because they just see my mum and my stepdad like
of course.
together.
Yeah.
So I've kind of I feel like I've got over that bit, but there are times when you just think like you wish people would just like not, and like there'll be certain days when I just think I just think.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't even know. It's not even their fault.
No.
And you want to be angry at them and you can't.
You can't.
It's not their fault. And then you think, oh, is that my fault? And obviously, of course, it's not. but it just kind of it brings you, as you said, it brings up like sensory emotions that aren't there maybe 6 out of 7 days a week, and that's the not where the problem lies, but where it's hard sometimes. You know, you might go 6 days absolutely great, and then one day might just hit you a bit, wake up and you feel a bit different.
I think ultimately you've got it spot on, and I think that's the whole idea behind grief, where grief has no linearity. There's no structure, and as much as I wish there was a structure, and maybe that would make life a bit more manageable. Recently, I, like you said, there are days where 6 out of 7 days you are fine, and then it could be something as little as I'm with a couple mates, and or I'm at a friend's house, and they're having interactions with their mum, and they're laughing, and they put a song on that they like, or something like that, something so small. That is so normal in most households, or in every households where there isn't a bereaved adult or a bereaved person. But for that, when I see that moment, there's like this recognition in my mind, like that I want that. What I would do to be able to dance with my mum, or I don't know, go to the cinema, and something that is so small. We're not talking. I mean, the whole idea of life events, something we can obviously come on to, which obviously are difficult in a completely different sense, but the small day-to-day situations are, I mean, watching football, how I saw on your Instagram, obviously there was a picture of you and your dad, outside Spurs or something like that. Is that, was he a big Spurs guy?
So the picture you referred to on my Instagram is from my first ever game, which was against Porto in a friendly, like August, I think 2004 or 2005. Okay.
So you must have been about how old?
I was only 4 or 5. Okay. I was born 2000.
Big Spurs fan, yeah.
Yeah. So then the next photo is me, the second last game at Whitehall Lane, with my dad's best friend, who I called my Uncle Richard. Yeah. And that is how they became best friends, because they were at a club one day, and they bonded over a funny. I can tell a story. They basically went to pick up a bottle of ketchup at the same time, and it went everywhere. Okay. That's actually how they became friends.
Nice. Classic.
But they saw each other at football. They sat about 4 rows away from each other, and they went together ever since. They had season tickets, and my dad made my Uncle Richard, promised him that he would take me and my brother to football, and that's what he did for 10 years. Yeah. Till we moved out of the new stadium into the new stadium. He picked up me and my brother every time. Took us to the calf before, just like they used to.
Oh, nice.
I think also for my uncle as well, that was nice as well. Yeah. They were best friends, like inseparable. Yeah. Inseparable. That they would. My mum would go on holiday with her parents and my dad, and he'd come with. Okay. They were inseparable.
Good old Richard.
Yeah. And he is really good. He's amazing person. Course. But yeah, like it's like to be able to go to football with my dad again, I'd give everything for that. Yeah. He was a massive football man. Not that he could play. Not sure. I got my talent from my mum's family, so he couldn't play.
You centre mid baller, mate. I've seen you.
They used to call him Slippers because he looked like he'd play in slippers.
Oh really?
Yeah, he loved football. Couldn't play. But no, it is the small things you wish and that you could have again. But
yeah, most definitely. Obviously, I want to bring up Richard, and I know it's not. Of course, it's not. Well, I guess it's related to loss, and the idea that some people don't know how to deal with loss, and especially with young people, and the fact that he has kind of takes you to games, and there's still that. I mean, that is incredibly nice, and I think. When it comes to loss, people want to be able to help, and they want to support, especially young individuals, but they don't know how. And of course, and I think that's what makes it so difficult, because a lot of loss isn't something too many people our age have experienced, and not to say loss in itself is so unique, and the kind of grief that I face is so different to what you face, and so different to what my brother would face. And I think that's what makes it hard for people to really kind of interact. Not so much interact, it's almost and I guess is why I'm doing it. It's that sense of normalization. But small things, I guess, like like Richard taking you to football, even though I guess, of course, like any normal, that of course it's football and he would, that bond is everlasting, but it's things like that we really appreciate.
Massively.
Completely. I mean, so how has your grief kind of changed over the years? Because of course it's been a long journey for you.
Yeah, I guess over time, I wouldn't say it's got better because I don't think that's the right word.
Yeah.
I think I've become more understanding of myself, and I think probably not knowing, but going off what I reckon when I was I think I was a lot more like emotional and a lot more showing of it when I was a lot younger.
Yeah.
Like I would just like dip out of school and just like I wouldn't want to be there. I'd probably be very like crying, very like visibly upset and emotional. Whereas now I think you learn to not deal with it better, but like deal with your own body like better. Like I don't really get that upset about it. I feel like I feel like, especially with having a younger brother as well, maybe you feel this, I think you've got 2 younger siblings.
Yeah, I've got 2 younger siblings.
I feel like I have to be there for my brother.
Yeah.
So I don't want if we go and visit my dad going to the cemetery, I don't want to be upset, especially because I'm with my mum, especially my young brother, because if he sees me upset, that might make him upset. So I feel like as you get older, you kind of even step into like a parental role with a younger sibling.
I mean, it's incredibly interesting what you said, and you've said a few really interesting points that I do want to touch on. But the first thing ultimately is how your grief manifests, and the idea that just because you aren't showing this emotional vulnerability doesn't mean you're not grieving. And I think to see, obviously, and I think as a guy, as a man, that's probably what makes and we're talking about all kind of emotional aspects of life and mental health. I think that's what makes it hard, is the idea that just because there isn't the tears or this vulnerability doesn't mean we're not grieving. And the grief, like you said, can transpire in like quite a cognitive fashion, which like yourself, like trying to take on that role and trying to be more practical in different aspects of life. But that's still grief. But just because there isn't this visibility, and there's this word I really dislike, and I a lot of non-grievers, but a lot of one of the common thing when you lose a parent or anyone, and you put a post on Facebook or on Instagram, the comment you get a lot is "stay strong," and for me, the reason I dislike this is why do I need to stay strong? What power, like why do I need to? Yes, I've just lost a mum, and I'm being told to be strong. Is it because I'm a guy and I've got younger siblings? Is it because they don't know what to say? And it was just something that I found. I was just a bit confused. Like, do I need to be strong now? Like, is this something I need to be stoic?
It's like you think it's expected of you.
Yeah, of course. But of course, I think it's really nice having that. Obviously you've got a younger sibling and taking that role on almost. And I know I've spoken to a few people, and I feel like to a degree I've done the same. I think losing a mom and losing a dad, there's slight differences there.
Sure.
Whereas I may not have that kind of emotional support, that emotional intelligence that mum had. I still have that practical element. My dad's a really practical guy, and whereas it's probably a bit reversed for you. So do you think, obviously, well, I know the answer, but losing your father, has that kind of pushed you, as you said, to taking on a bit more of a responsibility for your younger brother?
I get exactly what you mean. Having my mum still about is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're the man, it's weird to say, but the man of the house at like 8 years old, like obviously
mental.
I know it is crazy, but there's 3 of us living there. Obviously, my mum's dad was was amazing.
Yeah.
With like me and my brother like playing football and whatnot, but especially like in school and stuff. And when my brother, because I don't know if I wasn't originally from like northwest London sort of area.
Oh, okay.
We were in Essex.
Okay, nice.
So when my mum met someone over here, that's how I've ended up over here.
Okay,
so
an
when
Essex boy, huh?
So when my brother joined Yavna on his first day, he didn't know anyone.
Okay.
And then they obviously it's very cliquey, you know, what
Yeah.
everyone's like. So I feel like I kind of eased him in, you know, I'd maybe go and see him at break time, make sure he was alright.
Of course.
Just small things like that. I think you just have to like grow into these roles that you shouldn't have to.
No.
You say you shouldn't have to, but that's kind of how where life
Yeah.
takes you. But one thing I would say is that it definitely changed. I wouldn't say for the better, but it's made me a better person.
Interesting. And it definitely changes your course of life. Whether, hypothetically, if mum was around, would I be a different person? Most definitely. Like there would be different aspects of my life, but I do think losing someone, there's this deep empathy that you kind of develop, and you can feel other people's pain, and you kind of want to be better. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but I know when my kind of mindset now, I don't want to say I see life in a completely different way, because but this has kind of shown me how fragile our existence is, and you don't really know what's around the corner, and because of that, the way I kind of want to treat people is with kindness, and just show them, because I don't know, I'm going kind of off topic here, but it was just the idea that you don't really know what someone's going through.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, everyone, when I was younger, growing up, speaking to my dad's friend, they all say, oh, how nice he was and like, how much of an amazing person. And I think it shifts you to kind of, when you hear, like, especially of a parent that's passed away, it shifts you to want to be, like, to aspire to be, like, a bit of aspiration.
Yeah, of course.
When you hear, look, there was such an amazing person and whatnot, like, it inspires you to, like, be like that. And to, like, to kind of have them not live through you, but to,
well, it is in
a way,
their spirit guiding you almost. Yeah, I mean, also, I know you said, how do you find going to the cemetery?
Hard,
Quite
hard, yeah. Especially as I wasn't there at the beginning, so I've probably only been a handful of times.
Okay.
Especially with COVID. Haven't been for like a couple of years now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like quite far away as well. It's like over like an hour away back in Essex. It is quite hard, and I think the hardest part is that I've only ever been with 2 other people. I think maybe if I'd have been there, when you have a funeral and there's hundreds of people there, I feel like it blends in.
Yeah.
Might not. My first experience of that was with my mum and my brother.
Okay.
I felt that was quite hard, and I still find it quite hard. I wouldn't say I delay going, because that's not the right way to put it, but it does like hang over.
Yeah.
I would say I not enjoy going, but I make sure I do want to go, because I feel like it's such a weird experience.
Yeah, it's very weird,
because you're in this place of like fields essentially.
Yeah.
There's most of the time there's nobody else there.
Yeah.
It is literally just you and like the sky.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice to have the time that you can just like think, or even openly out loud speak to like whoever you've lost.
Yeah.
And feel like you're with them, and you, like most places in the world, you don't get the chance to do that freely.
No, of course not.
Most people think you're crazy if you just started speaking to no one.
Yeah, most definitely.
But it is that place of, I think some people maybe find it the comfort of doing that.
Oh, 100%. And when I go there, Mum has a nice bench near her site, and so I read to her, and it's actually that book up there, The Order of the Phoenix.
Lovely.
Her favourite HP book. But so it, like you said, when I go, I don't I don't think, even though I'm not getting response, it's so nice to just have that almost like it feels like there is a response there without there being a response. Like it's almost like I know what she's saying and I know, what she's telling me. I don't need to hear it, but I you just know.
And maybe being there, you feel a lot like mentally closer.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that helps as well. Having that I think with the whole side of grief, there's obviously a lot of physical emotion, but I think that is a thing that's quite short-lived. The crying, and I think the bit that's long-lasting is when you live in your own head.
Yeah.
That and the comfort of that is what helps a lot of people. That mental relief even.
Yeah.
It helps a lot of people.
Is there anywhere else? I couldn't get my words out there, but is there anywhere else you feel like comforted and almost like connected to your father, or is it just
football? I guess football, because like it's what he lived, is what I live as well. Like not all the time, but there are like certain moments. Like I put it, it's a weird, like we're obviously here today, like 2 years ago since Spurs got to the Champions League final.
Yeah.
In that moment, when obviously they scored the goal in the last minute,
unbelievable moments.
The only thing I could think of is the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I hope he's watching.
Yeah.
Like I obviously know he would be. Of course he is, and like stuff like the last game at Whitehall Lane, like to go with my mum, my brother, my uncle, even my siblings and my stepdad was amazing. But I would want to share that with my dad.
Yeah.
Just small things like that.
It is the small things like that, and I know not everyone thinks about it in this manner, but I like to think that whatever I am going through, I always like to think there is mum still guiding me, and she, this idea of spirituality is a completely different question, but I just know that, whatever journey I am on, I deeply believe that she is there with me, and I speak about feathers and quite a bit, and obviously this podcast logo is a feather, and the reason is because whenever I see these feathers, Mum said to me, whenever you see these feathers, just know that'll be me, and she said that before she passed, and whenever I do see these feathers, they always come to me in a time of need, a time of where I'm, where I have a big decision to make, where I have a big where I'm feeling shit, or if whatever that is, these are the moments where they appear, and I like to think that's just Mum. Kind of, she's just still navigating life with me, and having that mindset is definitely, it definitely kind of not opens your eyes a bit more, but I don't want to say it makes you accept the loss, because you can't really accept the loss, can you? You can't, like, it's one of the stages of grief, which acceptance, but you never really accept.
I like, it's always what if.
I
feel like grief is a lot of what ifs. I think even going back to the points we were saying before about how it changed you as a person, I think that you always have the kind of thought in your mind, what if they didn't pass away? What would I be like now? Where would my life be? But I think it's more about using these little things like that, you say, the feathers or something just as small as like making a decision, thinking, what would Dad tell me to do right now? Not just small things like that, and then going off instinct. They're the things that kind of not help you accept, because as you say, it's very, really hard to accept, but just kind of come to terms with like what's actually happened, and the actual, not the mental side. I think the acceptance might be the mental side of things. Whereas the physical, like, death of life, like you can't really beat around the bush. Like, you can't really beat around the bush. Someone has passed away. I feel like though that helps you kind of overcome that stage of it.
Most definitely. I think this is quite a difficult question, but you only shared 7 years with your father. Do you have a sense of jealousy towards people who knew him that much longer?
Jealousy, I think no. I think obviously I would love to have been able to do that. Like, it is hard to hear stories of like,
it's difficult.
You know what? I've actually never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, of
I've
course.
never really thought about it.
I think this is what these kind of conversations do. You kind of just think about it. You think about things a lot more, and there's definitely one thing that I think about is, I mean, there will be a point in my life, you know, hopefully where I will be older than what she was when she passed, and she left me these videos, and there will be, whether when I'm 52 or 53, I'll be, my life would have extended hers, and that I find that quite hard. Like there's this sense of robbery, how she had so much to offer and so much to give, and those extra 30 years. It's not just the 30 years. It was the years before that, and I think yes, you lose someone, and yes, your father passed. How old was he when he passed?
He was I think he was 1968, so he would have been around 40.
Okay.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, that makes sense because Mum was 68 as well. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so it wasn't the when it's the before that. I mean, how long was your dad's journey?
So he had a seizure in the middle of 1998, just after my parents got married. My mum was told 1 in 4 people have seizures just for no reason. Like, there's nothing to it, but they'd had a biopsy on the brain, and they said there was like this like cancer on the brain, and it was so close to his like speech and movement that they couldn't really do anything about it other than kind of the standard stages of like chemotherapy. They couldn't like try and like operate on it. So it was 10 years, to answer your question. It was 10 years.
Yeah.
But I think he did. I think based on obviously the treatment they have now compared to then, I think they said he did pretty well to get to 10 years.
Oh, really?
Amazing. Have 2 children.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But I think maybe when I was like 6 or 5 or 6, when like things started spreading.
Yeah.
At first they didn't think it was, and so towards the end they gave him these like, I think my mum called them like wafers, and they put that in like where the cancer is to stop it spreading.
Okay.
But it was too late by then.
Okay.
So, but if they'd have done that however many years ago, it might have stopped it from spreading, and who knows where we'd be now.
Yeah, and it's hard to really think like that because, there are stories where when Mum had her first chemo, and when they took out most of the cancer cells. But I think it was, I'm probably not giving the story full justice, but there was the type of treatment that she got, was the reason her cancer eventually spreads. Like, I don't know if it was chemotherapy because I think it like targets a whole area, not just specific cells. I can't fully remember, but it was, had the treatment been different, the cancer itself wouldn't have spread.
Yeah.
And it's hard to look at it like ifs and buts because it's one of those things that have happened, and it's hard to view life in that manner. But there is that element of sadness, if things could easily have been different, and it's very hard to acknowledge. But yeah, so just from what you remember. And of course, it was it was a long time ago. But did your dad ever talk to you about what he was going through and what may happen?
Oh, I don't think he ever spoke to me. He might have. I don't remember.
Yeah.
To say. I don't remember speaking to him about it, but I remember experiencing it. I remember very clearly going to a hospital in London. I think he was in a hospital. I think maybe Harley Street or something.
Okay.
And he was there because he was having an operation, and his memory and his like speech was so bad. He was in a like a nice hospital, and they were like doing a food order or something, like as in like for meals. And the woman would come around and ask him, "Do you want tea or coffee?" And he wouldn't really know what that was, or like, "What do you want, vanilla or chocolate ice cream?" And like small things like that are very poignant to this extent where he couldn't really order his own food, or he wouldn't 5 minutes later he wouldn't remember what he'd ordered.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of just how much like maybe by that point I'm not sure if he even had the physical, maybe even mental strength to understand how much pain he was in. I remember I think being younger, like maybe like even like to this 5 or 6 years old dad before when he was at home, just like a plate getting smashed because he was so frustrated in himself. He had like something come over him when he couldn't carry just like a plate or something. I think stuff like that really sticks with you, and not I don't really know how to describe it, but it's there, and that even though I didn't speak to my dad about what he was going through,
Yeah.
I would even say I experienced it with him. It was so not even scary is not even the word to use. It's so like
Vivid.
like mentally, like not scarring, but like mentally frightening to think, especially being as young as I was, to see someone in that state. Not state, that's the wrong word. In that kind of just like pain
yeah,
in that capacity, it's really hard to process that as a young child. I think it's maybe stuff like that you take for granted. I know I like just being able just to like speak and move freely. You take that for granted, and when you see someone in so much pain, I think it really like it should not humble you, but you should be able to like see through their eyes when you nowadays I'll see someone else if they're grieving. I've gone completely off topic, but I'm gonna go.
That's the whole point of this, mate. Do you know what I mean?
That's what sets me off the most. I would say seeing someone else's grief.
Yeah,
I think I know how hard that is for them.
Yeah, because it brings back all those those triggered memories. You know, when you have that pinpoint and you notice that in someone else, your sensory memories, and it's a term that I did in psychology, and I probably haven't done it justice, but there is a term for it, and seeing that brings up all these past feelings, and seeing from what I remember, and that the moment Mum never went to a hospice, but she, her last moments or last periods of life, it's fucking traumatic. It's devastating to see someone in that manner, like someone go from, when I say full of life, yes, she still had this cancer, but she was gleaming, she was smiling, and she still could talk, and not even talk. She could do everything.
It's like the same as my dad.
Yeah.
I like not to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Like even when he couldn't work in his own job, he'd work at our local Jewish club in Redbridge on like reception. And, like just doing a simple job like literally opening the front gate to make sure like just being safe and whatnot.
Yeah.
But being able to see him do that, and everyone's there still loved him, and I can go about that today, and people will tell me stories about he was there.
Amazing.
I think it is like he was able to do those things, and then come forward maybe like even just like a year to when I would be in hospice and see him, barely be able to get out of bed. It is draining.
It breaks you.
Yeah.
And so back to that point of, seeing other people grieving. And is something that I find quite hard now because of this platform that I have created. I do find how people kind of look to me for loss in a sense, and as much as I'm really I'm happy to talk about it, and I am happy to help out as much as I can. It does bring back a lot of hardship, and it is one of those things that it's a blessing and a curse. Like I love helping people and giving that support, but sometimes it is a lot for me, to kind of deal with, because it does bring back all these, and it's not repressed memories, because I'm not hiding from them, I'm not running away from them. It just brings back the memories that you thought you dealt with, and with grief it's not something you can deal with. Not deal with. It's not something you tick off. You don't. Oh, completed it. I've completed it, mate. I've done denial. I've done this. I'm free. I can now do whatever I want, and that's not it.
Never gonna get a complete tick.
No.
I would say it develops.
It's like a half tick.
Yeah, you develop the way you deal with it.
Yeah.
And as we both grow older, it might change.
Yeah.
That's the thing where it's never going to completely go away.
Yeah. And the idea that as you how do you find the knowledge that your father won't be there to see you graduate or see you get your first job? How is that dealing with that knowledge? I mean, it's hard. But
it's difficult. You think you want them to be there to be able to especially hopefully getting married and having children and whatnot that comes with that. I wouldn't say they're going to be missing a grandparent because I hope, please God, my stepdad will still be here.
Of course.
But there'll be like a chunk of like their life missing, and you know what comes from that, and like having your first job, and maybe like I think even simple things of going is completely backwards. But first starting secondary school, I went to a primary school where you didn't have to wear a tie, and my first day of secondary school came out. I didn't know how to do a tie.
Yeah.
Mum didn't know how to. Obviously, my younger brother didn't know how to tie, so someone at school did it for me. And
That's shit.
Like I had to ask someone at school, like, can you do as in a teacher, like, can you do this for me?
Yeah.
Like I don't really know how to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think like my tie. You know how you can like loosen the tie.
Yeah.
It probably didn't come out for about 6 months.
Yeah.
It was literally that one tie because I was worried that.
Yeah.
I would know what I like.
Course.
And obviously, eventually, you learn and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, like small things like that. Different to the question you asked, but kind of like same life milestones in life sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that is incredibly important to point out. You know, the idea of when not having a father and small things. I mean, I did a spoken word piece with Grief Encounter, and the idea was of the piece itself was I got through, and there was all these little life events that aren't significant to the modern, the normal situation, i.e. doing your tie, i.e. tying your shoelace, learning how to do that for the time. But because there isn't that figure, as a 7-year-old, you're a baby, and then there's so much of life you have to experience, and not having your father to, I don't know, do you drive?
Yeah.
So that's an element of bonding that is difficult, and I think it's one of those things that it's not regret, and I just it does leave you with a lot of sadness knowing that. I know I brought up jealousy before, and I think the reason I said that was because I do have a bit of jealousy when I see some of my friends with their mums. I feel jealous. I don't want to, but watching that relationship and watching that interaction, there is this sense of
jealousy. Yeah. And it's not in a spiteful way.
No, not at all.
You're not trying to take their relationship away. It's not like you want them to become their mum to be your mum.
No, not at all.
You're just jealous of that figure.
Yeah.
I get exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. And that's what I think find hard, and it's I don't know why, and like of course the idea of I love being independent, and the idea of you being that sense of independence, but you always need your father, you always need your mother, that's something, a figure who I look at my dad, and when he goes around to his mum's, my grandma, he still gets told off by his mum, and he's a 56-year-old guy, man, and like you in life, you always need that figure, like however independent or whatever you go on to do in the world, and I'm sure you'll do amazing things, but not having that figure there to help with decisions, to help with.
Because there are times in life you need to ask your mother or your father certain things.
Yeah.
And if someone isn't there, you may feel lost. I know you probably do feel lost.
Yeah.
Certain, like if you need to ask about, I don't know, whatever it is,
yeah.
you would feel lost with it. You feel lost, and it might even bring back worse memories or worse, not memories, but like grief that, like I don't have that person there. What do I do?
Yeah.
And maybe like mentally freeze.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings you down. It might be something really important and something you're like happy about, and the person that you want to ask isn't there.
Yeah.
And it kind of,
brings
perspective to the situation that no matter what it is, it's not as great as them.
No.
Realistically.
No, not at all. But it's something we have to deal with, and something, we've each day brings up different challenges, and that's all what I've kind of realised from these conversations. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. But I want to say this has been, it is. I always, I love these conversations, but especially I know how hard they are, and I just want to thank you for being open and just coming on and sharing your story, because I know it's not easy. So I really appreciate that. Before I do wrap this up, I always like to ask this question, and if you were to speak to your father again, and if there was that conversation, or if you would want to share anything with him, what is it you'd say?
I would probably thank him for being who he was, because stories I've heard, it defines the person who I am today, just like kind and caring. And I would probably ask him about, if I'd say thank you for like who he was in the past, and I'd probably ask him about how to improve myself in the future.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a, I think that kind of splits his life in half, because if he was 40, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has advice for me.
Yeah.
He can't change what's happened now,
No.
and I can only thank him for how I am.
Yeah. You're a credit to him.
But the advice in the future would be amazing to hear what advice advice he's got for me. I'm sure it'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure. But again, thank you so much, mate. And yeah, I think we can call that a wrap.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Oh.
I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. From the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Papa.